Welcome back to Gardens and Guitars. Today I wanted to show y'all the level of productivity that you can get with certain varieties of peppers. As much as I love bell peppers, I have noticed over the years that other varieties such as bananas, Hungarian wax peppers, shishitos tend to be more productive in terms of yield per plant. This is a banana pepper here. You can see right now on this one plant we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. There are 22 peppers on this one plant right now. The more often you pick these, the more they tend to produce. I like to let them turn red before I pick them, so I'm probably not getting as many peppers as I could if I picked them more often when they were all yellow. But yeah, 22 peppers on one plant. Then next to this we have, I don't remember what variety this is. It's got about 15 or 20 on it. These plants really need to be staked. They're toppling over under their own weight. This one here I think is one of the Marconis from Italy. This plant has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 peppers on it at the moment. Hopefully I'll try to figure out how to stake these later today before they collapse under their own weight, and they'll be a little more productive. I think I'm just going to run some wooden stakes on either side of this bed and set up some trellis wire to kind of have them lean on. But yeah, incredibly productive. But let's go harvest some tomatoes in the front yard. I'm not sure if y'all can see all of the flowers in the front yard here. I think they look nice. It's kind of a waste of space because they're not edible flowers. But I think there are some other benefits to having flowers in the garden. This tomato here has been fairly productive despite not being staked. I think I mentioned in the previous video that I would probably get a lot more tomatoes if I bothered to stake and prune these, which I haven't done simply because I avoid being in the front yard as much as possible. Today is a rare day where the neighbor is not home, so I decided I would come out here and harvest some tomatoes real quick. I think I just dropped my phone. When I first started growing tomatoes, I guess it was 16 or 17 years ago, I would always try to grow beautiful, flavorful heirloom tomatoes. And as wonderful as some of those are in terms of their complex flavors and historical value, I have decided that since I live in an area where tomatoes are pretty difficult to grow due to the intense disease and insect pressures, mainly disease pressures, I'm going to focus more on quantity over quality. So I grow more of the modern hybrid tomato varieties now, most of which have been bred to have increased resistance or tolerance to a lot of different diseases, mainly fungal and bacterial diseases. And while they might not look as beautiful and taste quite as good, the yields tend to be a lot better. I've decided that it's better to have an entire pantry full of jars of marinara sauce from some largely unremarkable Romas than it is to have a handful of Cherokee purples on the counter. So there's always trade-offs. Hardest part about this is finding them all. Sometimes I don't manage to find them before they rot. Everything is planted incredibly densely because I didn't really thin anything out. So it's, ooh, look, some habaneros. Very pretty. I suppose we might as well go ahead and harvest those. I didn't even know there were any habaneros hiding in here. Not sure what we're gonna do with them. I made chili the other night, and I put one habanero pepper into a giant stock pot of chili, and it was enough to light up that entire pot of chili. Some of these zucchinis in the front yard we're going to let go to seed so that we have seed for next year, and we'll be keeping track of the maternal and paternal parents. As we discussed in one of the previous videos, one of my goals is to develop a variety of zucchini that has resistance to powdery mildew, but also has good old-fashioned, intense squash flavor. Most of the zucchinis and squashes you buy at the store tend to be fairly bland. I like a robust, very flavorful squash, but most of the varieties that have strong, old-fashioned flavor tend to be low-yielding and susceptible to powdery mildew. Well, I think that's most of the tomatoes for now. There's a few stragglers. It's quite dry in here, even though I watered for about an hour yesterday. We've been in drought conditions for close to 3 months now. I probably would water today, but we do have an entire week of thunderstorms coming. Or rather, an entire week where the chance of thunderstorms is at least 40 or 50% every day. I suppose that's slightly different. On Thursday, there was a 100% chance of thunderstorms in the evening, and we did not get a single drop of rain. Unfortunately, the leaf-footed bugs are here already. The leaf-footed bugs are a fairly new pest. I've only been seeing them for the last couple years. They're one of the worst pests of tomato and pepper. They make tiny little holes in the fruit, and then the fruit will rot, usually before it ripens. Here's an example of that. There's not much that can be done about them other than trying to attract birds. Leaf-footed bugs are very difficult to trap. You try to swat them or squish them and they fly away. They're too large to really be controlled by any chemicals. See, a lot of tomatoes are starting to rot because the leaf-footed bugs make tiny little holes in the fruits. The only thing that I've found that is helpful is to start harvesting the tomatoes when they're still green and just letting them ripen inside. That's slightly unfortunate because you do get sweeter, tastier tomatoes if they are vine ripened in the sun. but a tomato that's ripened inside is better than a tomato that rots outside. Almost all your tomatoes at the grocery store are picked when they are green, and then they are ripened indoors using ethylene gas, which you can simulate at home if you harvest your tomatoes green and then put them in a brown paper bag with a few bananas. As the bananas start to turn spotty and brown, they will produce ethylene, which will cause the green tomatoes to ripen fairly quickly. Quite a bit of rot on some of these peppers, unfortunately. Not really sure what that is. This looks like a soft type of rot, maybe something bacterial. The watering situation with the front yard garden has been less than ideal. I have a sprinkler set up, but it only hits part of the garden. It's less a problem with the sprinkler and more a problem of wind. Well, I think that's probably enough for today. Wow, the drought is really taking its toll. I've never seen zinnias wilting before. If not for the weaker rain we have coming, I probably would go ahead and water today. It's always a tough decision because too much water encourages a lot of weeds, diseases, and insect pests. Not enough water is good to keep weeds, insects, and diseases down, but it'll drought stress your crops and your yields will be a little lower. So we've been picking this many tomatoes about once a week or so. Last week I picked this many twice. When we start getting more rain, we'll probably see a flush of new flowers and new fruits, but we'll also probably see a lot more of the leaf-footed bug pests as well as some of the bacterial diseases. Thank you all for tuning in today. We're going to take these inside, and most of these will be processed into marinara sauce.